Something extraordinary just happened. A top U.S. military general, a man who spent more than 4 decades serving the country, stood in front of a crowd and delivered a speech that is now sending shockwaves through American politics. And the reason? Because his message was simple, blunt, and impossible to ignore. He warned about Donald Trump, not quietly, not behind closed doors, but out in the open. And when a man who once sat at the very top of the American military establishment starts talking like that, people pay attention. Because this wasn't just some random commentator on cable news. This was General Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest-ranking military officer in the United States, a man who advised presidents, a man who commanded troops, a man who spent over 40 years in uniform. And during his speech, he reminded everyone what the military oath is actually about. Not a president, not a political party, the Constitution. And when he said it, the message was impossible to miss.
Something much larger than all of us. It's about our democracy. It's about our republic. We are unique among the world's armies. We are unique among the world's militaries. We don't take an oath to a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it. Those values and ideas are contained within the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the moral North Star for all of us who have the privilege of wearing the cloth of our nation. It is that document that all of us in uniform swear to protect and defend against all.
Let that sink in for a second, because that line, "We don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator," instantly lit up the political world. People across social media immediately started asking the same question. Was that directed at Donald Trump? And if it was, this is one of the most explosive warnings we've seen from a senior military figure in modern American history. Because the US military has a tradition, a very strong one. They stay out of politics. Generals almost never publicly criticize a former president, especially one they served under. But that's exactly why this moment matters so much. When someone who spent decades inside the system decides to speak publicly, it means they believe something serious is happening. And here's the part a lot of people don't realize. Mark Milley isn't just any retired officer. He was Donald Trump's own chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Trump appointed him. Trump trusted him. Trump relied on him during some of the most intense moments of his presidency, which makes what happened next even more remarkable. Because after leaving office, Milley didn't hold back. He reportedly described Trump as fascist to the core, and he warned that Trump represented a danger to the United States. Those are not casual words, especially coming from a man whose entire career involved evaluating threats to national security. This is someone who spent decades studying adversaries, terrorist groups, foreign militaries, authoritarian regimes. And according to him, the biggest concern wasn't overseas. It was right here in American politics. That phrase, foreign and domestic, is incredibly important. Because when service members swear their oath, they're promising to defend the Constitution against threats from outside the country and inside the country. That's not a new idea. It's written directly into the oath that every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine takes. And Milley's speech was basically a reminder of that. The Constitution comes first, always, no matter who the president is. But here's where the story gets even bigger. Because Mark Milley isn't the only top military leader who has sounded the alarm about Donald Trump. Not even close. There's a growing list of Trump's own generals who have publicly warned about him. And when you start putting those warnings together, a pattern emerges. First, there's James Mattis. If you don't know the name, here's the short version. Mattis is a legend in the Marine Corps, a 4-star general, a combat commander, a man respected across the political spectrum. When Trump nominated him to be Secretary of Defense, the Senate confirmed him almost unanimously. That's how respected he was. But after working directly with Trump, Mattis eventually resigned. And when he left, he delivered a devastating critique. He said Trump had made a mockery of the Constitution. Not bent it, not stretched it, Mocked it. That's the word Mattis chose. Then there's John Kelly, another four-star Marine general, another Trump appointee. Kelly served as Trump's White House chief of staff. He was literally one of the closest advisors to the president. But Kelly also became one of Trump's most outspoken critics, and his accusations were shocking. Kelly confirmed reports that Trump had referred to fallen American soldiers as suckers and losers. Think about that for a second. Because Kelly isn't just a general, he's also a Gold Star father. His own son was killed while serving in Afghanistan. So when Kelly talks about respect for the military, he knows exactly what that sacrifice looks like.
Those who sacrificed themselves on the altar of freedom in the last 2.5 centuries of this country must not have done so in vain. The millions wounded in our nation's wars did not sacrifice their limbs and shed their blood to see this great experiment in democracy perish from this earth. No, we the American people, we the American military, must never turn our back on those that came before us. And we will never turn our back on the Constitution. That is our North Star, that is who we are, and that is why we fight. Thank you, and may God bless our military, and may God bless the United States.
That line in the speech carries a lot of weight, because the entire point Milley was making is that the sacrifices of American soldiers were meant to defend democracy itself. Not any single leader, not any political movement, the Constitution, the system, the Republic. And that idea sits at the center of the entire debate happening right now. Now step back and look at the full picture. You have Mark Milley warning about Trump, James Mattis accusing him of undermining the Constitution, John Kelly confirming disturbing comments about fallen soldiers. These are not partisan activists. These are the three most powerful military figures who serve directly under Trump, and they're all saying some version of the same thing, that something about Trump's leadership deeply alarmed them. And historically, this kind of situation is almost unheard of. American military leaders rarely speak out like this. There's a long-standing tradition of staying politically neutral, even after retirement, because the military's credibility depends on remaining above partisan politics, which makes this moment extraordinary. Because when generals break that silence, they usually believe the stakes are extremely high. That phrase, our North Star, perfectly captures the message Milley was trying to deliver. The Constitution is supposed to guide everything. Not personal loyalty, not political loyalty, constitutional loyalty. And the fear among Trump's critics, including some of his former generals, is that Trump doesn't see it that way. They argue that Trump views institutions differently. Courts, elections, the military, not as independent systems, but as tools to advance his own power. Now, Trump and his supporters strongly reject that criticism. They argue that Trump is simply challenging a political establishment that has failed the American people. So this debate has become one of the most intense political arguments in the country. But what makes this moment unique is who is delivering the warning. And it's not just these three figures. Hundreds of retired generals and admirals have signed letters raising similar concerns. Former intelligence officials, former national security advisors, ambassadors, people from both Republican and Democratic administrations. And again, whether you agree with them or not, that level of alarm from the national security world is extremely rare. So where does that leave us? We now have a situation where a former president is running for power again, while some of the very military leaders he once appointed are publicly warning the country about him. That's a remarkable moment in American history, because these are people who spent their entire careers defending the system. And now they're speaking out because they believe that system might be under threat. And ultimately, this is the real question Americans have to wrestle with. What do you do when the people who spent their lives protecting the Constitution start warning the country about one of its political leaders? Do you dismiss it as politics? Or do you take a step back and ask why they felt compelled to speak out at all? Because one thing is certain. When a four-star general with 43 years in uniform decides to break the military tradition of staying silent, he probably believes the warning matters a lot. And what the country chooses to do with that warning is going to say a lot about where America goes next.